All right, October 14th, 9:41 a.m. District Court Defendant Lobby, number 4. Hey, Nick! What is it this time? You won't believe how many people are here for the trial. Well, it is a murder case. What are you talking about? They're here for the trial next door. Next door? Why don't you know this, Nick? You're having Detective Atmey's trial today. Detective Atmey? They say they're gonna try him as Mask Damask. Already? That was fast. Boy, I'd love to see Mask Damask's trial. I know. By the way, where's Pearls? Oh, she went back home. She said she can't neglect her training anymore. I know you don't like me. Pearls has really gotten into her training lately, huh? Yeah, ever since that incident last year. Please, don't ignore me. Oh, Mr. Delight, good morning. No one likes me. No one would notice me, even if I killed someone. Come on, don't be silly. Wait a second, you don't mean you're the murderer? No, I'm just a poor thief. No, wait, that's not right. A thief can't really be poor. Now, let's see. According to Mr. Delight, from his second crime on, he was following a bunch of set plans that someone had been sending him to help him commit the heists. Do you think there's a connection between the thief and the murderer, Nick? It's possible, but today's trial is a race against the clock. Huh? How come? Let's just take our time like always. I'm afraid that's not an option. Why not? I mean, I think I know why not, but why not?
Court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Ron Delight.
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
You're ready? Preparation is the last refuge of the weak. Okay then, settle down everybody. Let's begin with your opening statement, Mr. Godot.
He's got the judge in the palm of his hands yet again.
Ron Delight is simply too young to be sent to war. That's all. I'm afraid I have no idea what that means, Mr. Godot. Ha! Then you need to get at it. You need to get out more, Your Honor. Life is war. But that is exactly why you must be more precise in your wording. That's all my statement means. You understand now, right? Yeah, well, then. Let me briefly summarize the details of this case.
Wow, the judge is taking charge like he knows what's going on for a change.
The victim is Kane Bullard, CEO of KB Security. His body was found in a safe at approximately 9 a.m. on the morning of the 13th. However, the time of death was estimated as 1 a.m. of the previous day. And that's when our little lost kitten dropped the ball. That little lost kitten is, of course, the defendant. Very well then, Mr. Godot. Please call your first witness to the stand. I never drink more than 17 cups of coffee during any given trial. But the first one is always the best. Mr. Godot, your witness? Okay then. Let's hear what the defendant, Mr. Ron Delight, has to say for himself. The defendant? Well, Mr. Wright, does the defense have any objections? It may be a bit of a disadvantage having the defendant testify, but...
I remember when Mia was defending me. She allowed me to testify so she could do the cross-examination. She put a lot of trust in me back then. We have no objections, Your Honor. The defense will allow Mr. Delight to testify.
Ha! You've got guts, trite. All right then, Mr. Ron Delight. Please take the stand. You did it, didn't you?
Yes. What? Oh, no, that's not true. That's not true.
For a moment there, I thought we'd set the record for the shortest trial ever.
Well, Mr. Delight already looks plenty guilty with all the faces he's making. And once he opens his big mouth, he'll probably put the last nail in his own coffin.
Ha! Very well. Now then, can you tell me something? If you didn't kill Bullard, why did you go to KB Security?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. Boy, I wish I could go home.
Now then, let's hear some testimony about what happened.
My visit to KB Security. That evening, around 1 a.m., I went to see Mr. Bullard in his office at KB Security. The blackmail letter I got, it ordered me to go there. You see, I'd been working for KB Security until a year ago, so I knew where his office was. That's it.
1 a.m., the exact time the murder took place. Oh, the weak get washed away by the tides of fate. The strong, well, they drink it up. Ha! It's bitter today, too, just like my destiny.
You'd never know that from the way he's chugging it down.
Mr. Wright, your cross-examination, if you please.
My visit to KB Security. Around 1 a.m., I went to see Mr. Bullard in his office at KB Security. 1 a.m., huh? You're absolutely sure about that? Yes, that's what my watch said when I was entering the CEO's office. No. Actually, I'm not really sure. My watch was slow and my internal clock was also a bit...
1 a.m. That is the exact time the victim, Mr. Bullard, was murdered, correct? It's too late for a coffee date, that's for sure.
The blackmail letter I got ordered me to go there. It ordered you there? It was the first time I'd gotten a blackmail letter that ordered me to go somewhere.
Does this mean you've gotten other blackmail letters then?
Oh, of course. They've said things like, steal this or take that. Why don't you save those for later, Mr. Delight? Please don't say any more. Now what should I do? Press harder. So what did the blackmail letter in question say? It said to bring $50,000.
Money, huh? A perfect motive for committing murder.
Oh, but wait! Wait! I never intended to pay that money anyway.
Oh, is that right?
After all, he had nothing to hold over my head. I had nothing to be afraid of.
An important point indeed. Witness, let's have that added to your testimony.
Yes, sir. A muddy mud skipper in outer space has a better chance of surviving than I do. The blackmail thread didn't scare me. It wasn't going to cause me trouble or anything. Let's take a look at our evidence. Okay, so we have the box, blah, blah, blah. This is a big part at the end of our trial. The paint stain, the box, had the urn in it. The urn was broken again and then repaired 2 weeks ago. So that's somewhat important, I guess. Ron's testimony from earlier. From Damask's second heist on, he was stealing as directed by blackmail letters. Buzzer record, 1:02 a.m. was when the buzzer went off in the CEO's office. Kane's list, found on the table at the crime scene, and it had all of the jewels with prices, or all of the stolen goods with prices next to them. The CEO office buzzer, the newspaper clipping about the first heist, guard-in photo, Ron Delight. Touch the check button for details. Yeah, that's Ron Delight, and there's Luke at me, and that's the first heist. Kane's autopsy report, 1 a.m., cerebral hemorrhage, blah, 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 Damask's brooch, publicity photo. Where's the blackmail letter? I want to check this again real quick. If you don't want your true identity revealed to the world, come to KB Security at 1 a.m. on October 12th and bring $50,000. If you don't, I'll take the red diamond you received the other day. So that didn't scare me. It wasn't going to cause me trouble or anything, but we have clear evidence against that. I'm going to press it and see what happens, and maybe I'll present after. Just what were you being blackmailed about anyway?
The blackmail letter said, if you don't want your identity revealed, correct?
I'm sure it was referring to the whole mask demask thing. But I wasn't worried. Mr. Bullard didn't have anything on me.
He didn't?
Anyway, I don't care what anyone says about me, just as long as Desi believes in me. So that's why Miss Delight didn't believe he was masked to mask. That's why I knew they were just hollow threats. I'd been working for KB Security until a year ago, so I knew where his office was. Let's check this. You used to be a security chief for KB Security, right? Yes, that's right.
A security chief? You? And yet, a year ago, you were fired without notice. Revenge for an old grudge? A perfect motive for murder, wouldn't you say?
This isn't good. Maybe I should change the subject. Let's get why he was fired. Mr. Delight, please tell us why you were fired from your job. Well...
The world is filled with those who have said, I wish I'd never asked that.
Okay, I take it back.
Defendant, please answer the question.
Well, I needed money.
You needed money?
Well, you see, Desi loves to spend it. It's kind of her hobby. Not exactly the best hobby in the world, huh, Nick? My salary wasn't nearly enough, so I stole data from the company. Come again? KB Security has a lot of security info on all sorts of companies. And since I was a security team chief...
You stole some data, and you sold it.
Mr. Bullard found out, and I was fired immediately. What? Oh, I wish I'd never asked that. I was somehow able to keep it a secret, and made it seem like I had quit on my own. What is it, Nick? You don't look so good.
Someone who brings harm to their company is fired as punishment. You'd do well to remember that.
Sorry, sneeze was coming on there. He sure told you.
So you admit that you stole data from your company? Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a very important fact. Please add it to your testimony.
Oh man, this whole thing just took a big turn for the worse. Crashed and blew up. It's gonna take the jaws of life to rip this case from the clutches of disaster. He fired me for selling company secrets, but Desi doesn't know about that. Huh. Let's press. Why would you do something like that? Well, for Desi's hobby. What else? Wasting money, huh? It's not a waste! So Miss Delight doesn't know that her husband was fired, does she? So it would seem. I'm not sure what to think about couples who keep secrets like that from each other. Can't believe it. This case has gotten even Maya to think seriously about couples.
Please try to stay focused, Mr. Wright.
There wasn't much to his testimony, was there? Sounds like he's avoiding something. At least, that's what it sounded like to me. Uh-oh. I've got a bad feeling about this. We'd better be careful. But if we don't find a way to make him spill the beans, we're never gonna get closer to the truth. Yeah. Around 1 a.m., I went to see Mr. Bullard in his office at KB Security. The blackmail letter I got, it ordered me to go there. The blackmail threat didn't scare me. It wasn't going to cause me trouble or anything. I'd been working for KB Security until a year ago, so I knew where his office was. He fired me for selling secrets, but Desi doesn't know about that. This is the one I feel like I gotta present something on. The blackmail thread. The blackmail threat didn't scare me. It wasn't going to cause me trouble or anything. Like, We have the treasure exhibit poster. We have the statue. The only thing that would scare him is Desi finding out. Hates criminals and cowards more than anything. Hates criminals more than anything. I forgot about that trait of hers. I think this right here, the fact that the blackmail letter, I don't want your true identity, or if you don't want your true identity revealed to the world, come to KB Security at 1 a.m. Obviously the blackmail would scare him, because if his true identity was revealed, the woman who he would do anything for, such as become a thief, hates criminals. And they're married. You would assume that he knows that about her. Objection! Mr. Delay, what you said just now doesn't match with what you told me yesterday. Huh? What doesn't? I think you must have been scared. Very scared. Of having a certain person find out your secret.
A certain person?
Miss Desiree Delight, the defendant's wife. Oh, but listen to me, my Desi, she's...
Looks like if I just sit back and relax, the fun will end before it truly begins.
Ugh, Godot.
Yeah, we know. It was all your wife's fault. What do you mean? Miss Delight stole company data to pay for his wife's spending habit, for which he was fired. Unable to face his own wife, someone used his dirty little secret to blackmail him. And that is how this murder came about.
No. Everything is falling neatly into place for him. Don't talk about my Desi like that, or you'll be sorry.
Well, it seems that we've learned a great deal of things here so far.
What do you think, Nick? I didn't think it was possible to get so thoroughly whipped in just 20 minutes.
Clearly there was sufficient motive for the murder. He stole data for his wife and he killed to protect his secret. A family man who cared just a little too much. The motive is clear. Let's move on. What happened at the crime scene at 1 a.m. in the morning, Mr. Delight? Come now, tell us, we're all ears.
When I entered the office, there was a suspicious shadow there. Suddenly, I was hit on the forehead. After that, I remember being a bit dazed. If I hadn't been wearing that, I would have been killed. When I came to, Mr. Bullard was lying there, dead.
I see. Suddenly hit on the forehead, huh? I believe the detective from yesterday provided similar testimony. He said that Mask de Mask struck him on the head from behind.
Of course. Since Atme turned out to be the culprit himself, that was all a lie.
Ha! No one's going to believe a pathetic lie like that.
What are you saying? I was really attacked!
We'll find out if what you say is true or not during the cross-examination. Got that, Mr. Trite? Don't go easy just because he's your client. If I see any sign that you are, I'll treat you to another cup of my special blend.
You don't need to worry about that, Mr. Godot. I have faith in Ron, and I know he didn't do it. When I entered the office, there was a suspicious shadow there. Who was this suspicious shadow? If there were 1,000 of me, and even if one knew, trust me, I'd tell you. He's dodging all of our questions. Is not helping us win this case. Okay, then, how was the victim, Mr. Bullard, at the time? What do you mean by, how was he? Was he already dead? Was he still alive? Maybe he was the one who hit you in the first place. That's a good question. What do you think, Mr. Wright? Forget it. Useless. Suddenly, I was hit on the forehead. After that, I remember being a bit dazed. Your forehead? Yes. I was hit on the forehead as soon as I entered the room. It was an amazingly fast and powerful attack. Do you remember anything about who hit you? Well, it's like I said. It was a fast and powerful hit. So I think I was dazed for a little while. I don't think Mr. Delight even grasped what you were asking. Yeah, I'd like to show him a fast and powerful attack myself. Maybe that would knock some sense back into him. If I hadn't been wearing that, I would have been killed. That? Could you please clarify what you are referring to? Why, my Masque de Masque costume, of course.
Wait just one moment. Masque de Masque?
Huh? Oh, did I forget to mention it before? Just to be on the safe side, I dressed as Masque de Masque. And then I descended upon the office of the CEO of KB Security.
What?
Nick, did you know about this? He never told me this. I don't recall him ever mentioning it to me either.
Even I didn't know. It seems our little friend really loves to keep secrets.
I'm sorry, I just never had a chance to mention it up until now. Wait, that's not right. You know how some things, sometimes they just slip your mind?
My 6th cup of coffee is staring up at me coldly. At any rate, we can't ignore this new piece of information. Witness, please correct your testimony.
I'd have been killed if I hadn't been wearing my Masque de Masque costume. Now, one thing. This photo right here. This photo right here was taken at essentially 12:58, little like right before 1 a.m. And he went at 1 a.m. dressed as Masque de Masque. Why were you dressed up as Masque de Masque? Why? Because I am Masque de Masque, of course.
What are you talking about? Masque de Masque's trial is being held next door.
Oh, yes, I guess so. Anyway, at that time, I thought I was being blackmailed over the Masque de Masque issue, so I thought I should go as him just to be safe. Oh boy. Let me tell you, it's a real pain to move around with that cape. That's why it took a lot longer than I expected. Took a lot longer? What is he talking about? I think I'll wait and see how this develops. Hey, why aren't you doing anything? Because it'll probably end up causing more trouble. I'll tackle it once I'm mentally prepared. Guess I should prepare myself for the worst, too. I want to go back and press harder on that. What do you mean by took a lot longer? Oh, opening the safe, of course. My cape got caught on the safe door, you see. This all happened when I was hiding Mr. Bullard's body.
What was that? Back up a second.
Yes?
You were the one that hid the body in the safe?
Well, yes.
Inconceivable! Why? Just why? What reason could you have? What were you thinking? Question. When does someone toss their dirty shorts in the washing machine? What? The answer is simple. When they take them off. As usual, I have no idea what you're saying.
Do you mean that Mr. Delight hid the body because he's the murderer?
So you're not as stupid as you look.
His metaphor this time was really obscure.
Mr. Wright, you don't mean that you knew about this whole safe business, do you?
Well, yeah.
Why am I the only one not in the loop here? Witness, make sure you add this to the testimony.
Yes, sir. Uh-oh. Looks like a storm front is moving in over the fair weather judge. I panicked and hid the body in the safe. It took about 10 minutes. Why did you hide the body in the safe anyway? Well, because it wouldn't fit in a drawer. That's not really what I meant. When I saw that corpse, I kind of lost it. I thought if they find his corpse, they'll think I did it.
I think you had a simpler reason than that. It's because you killed him. That's why you spent 10 minutes hiding the body. That certainly makes more sense.
Hold on. 10 minutes? What is it, Nick? I just had a thought. Under those circumstances, would you normally try to hide the body and spend 10 whole minutes to do it? Under those circumstances? What circumstances? Hey, Nick! If you think his behavior was so strange, why don't you present some evidence that would show just what those circumstances were? They're really handing this one to me. Court record. What do we got? Yes, the buzzer record. The buzzer record. If he showed up precisely at 102 and the buzzer went off, or 1 and the buzzer went off at 102, he wouldn't chill while the buzzer was going off. There's no way he would. I bet you he's still hiding something. Excuse me. When I entered the office, there was a suspicious shadow. Zibbity zabbity zoo. 10 minutes. Objection! Sorry, bucko. Your Honor, could you please take a look at this record?
And what might this be?
The record for the emergency buzzer that connects the CEO office to security. If the button in the office is pressed, a security team is supposed to come running. And according to this record, the buzzer was pushed once at 1:02 a.m.
What?
If Mr. Rondelite truly was the murderer, he would have ran as soon as that buzzer sounded. After all, a security guard would have been heading his way.
Ha! Let's remember who we're dealing with here. He probably had no idea there were security personnel in the building.
Not likely. Up until 1 year ago, my client was working as chief of security. There's no way he wouldn't have known about them.
But, as it turns out, the guard never came.
That was nothing more than a coincidence. The fact that the guard was a pathetic loser who had just gotten punched in the face by his ex's new boyfriend and wasn't anywhere in the vicinity was not something Mr. Delite could have known.
Again, remember who we're dealing with here. It's a sure bet that Mr. Delite didn't even notice the buzzer going off.
This buzzer is extremely loud. There is no way anyone could have ignored something like that. If he had been conscious, that is. Conscious?
What do you mean by that?
Ugh.
Fine. Let's hear your theory.
Remember the defendant's testimony. The moment he entered the victim's office, someone attacked him. Mr. Delite said he felt dazed. I'm willing to wager that he was knocked unconscious for at least a few minutes.
Unconscious? So he fainted?
That's why Mr. Delite didn't know that the buzzer had sounded. And that's why he thought he had time to hide the body.
So what are you trying to say?
Mr. Delite was knocked out and the buzzer went off soon afterwards. Now, unless my client was able to hit the buzzer while he was unconscious, it can only mean that there was another person in that room. That's right, whoever it was that knocked out Ron Delite and then pressed the buzzer.
Order in the court. Mr. Wright, this is preposterous. If it was this kid, Ron Delite is the one who killed Kane Bullard.
Then who pressed the buzzer?
It was the victim, of course. He pressed the buzzer when the defendant attacked him. He didn't die right away. He must have held on long enough to push that button. So Kane Bullard sounded the alarm himself. What's your opinion on this, Mr. Wright?
I need to prove that the real criminal was there at the scene, but how? Can I prove that it wasn't Kane Bullard who sounded the buzzer? Let's find out. Wooden box that had... Okay, so not the box, not the paint mark, not the urn. Ron's testimony, second height. Okay, no. Buzzer record, no. Kane's list, suspicious, but no. There are no fingerprints on the office buzzer. And Kane Bullard, I don't think we have any record of Kane Bullard wearing gloves. And there's no reason for him to have been wearing gloves. Yeah, we have evidence. The defense's opinion is this, Your Honor. This piece of evidence proves that it wasn't the victim who sounded the buzzer. The buzzer itself. I believe this is the piece of incontrovertible evidence that you were looking for.
The emergency buzzer itself? Is there some kind of clue on it?
Absolutely not.
Hey, come on now. At least give some thought on what you say before opening your mouth.
The fact that there are absolutely no clues is itself the clue.
Now I'm the one who's clueless.
This button has no fingerprints on it. If Mr. Bullard had really pressed it himself, naturally, he would have left his fingerprints behind.
Ron Delight obviously wiped them off.
Why would he? A guard could have come in at any moment. He touched that button.
He touched that button. I know he did.
The defendant, Mr. Delight, was dressed as Mask Damask. And Mask Damask always wears gloves. What reason could he possibly have to wipe the button free of fingerprints?
Order, order, order. It would seem I've been forced to eat crow.
I wonder what blend of crow-flavored coffee that is.
However, if the real killer was there at the scene, then why would the person press the emergency buzzer? Shouldn't they have run away without putting themselves in extra danger? What's with that awkward silence all of a sudden?
Looks like you're fresh out of parlor tricks, Phoenix.
They're on to you, Nick. Just give me a minute to collect my thoughts. The real culprit killed Bullard at around 1 a.m. And Mr. Delight just happened to waltz in when the murder was taking place, right? The killer clobbered Mr. Delight and then sounded the buzzer. Even though security was supposed to respond right away if the buzzer was pressed, security was supposed to respond?
Time's up, Mr. Wright. Let's hear what you have to say.
Very well, then.
Oh, you've got some guts. I like that in an opponent.
Why did the real killer sound the emergency buzzer?
To call the security guard to find out what it did, they didn't mean to. To call the security guard. He obviously wanted a security guard to show up and see Mask Damask and dead KB and be like, yo, murder took place. It was this guy. Bam. What better way than to frame someone than to call security to witness it, right? The killer knew that if they pressed the button, a guard would come running. And that was exactly what they wanted.
Do you mean to say the killer called the guard on purpose?
Yes, although as it turned out, he never showed up. Because he was getting his clock cleaned at the time.
Heh, what a touching story. You're saying the killer had a change of heart and called the guard to turn himself in?
Not exactly. I'm not. When that buzzer was sounded, there were 3 people in that office. The victim, Kane Bullard, who was already dead. The defendant, Ron Delight, who was out cold. And the third person, the real killer.
Hypothetically, yes.
Now then, in this situation, if the real killer made an escape, what would happen? The only ones left in the room would be the victim and Ron Delight. And if any security guards came running in at that time, they would think that I was the murderer. Exactly. That is precisely the real killer's objective. To frame Ron Delight for murder. I love the time it took for him to do that spit take. I love this character so much. Godot is the best. He's the best prosecutor.
Order, order, order. It would seem I've been made to eat my words once again.
Actually, you've been made to do a spit take with a cup of coffee. Mr. Wright, who was it? Who was it that tried to frame me? Wait a second. I'm the one and only Mask Demask, so... Nick, you mean the real killer is... We're gonna drag that person in here right now. But who is it? I don't have any solid proof yet, but think about it. The killer knew Mr. Delight's identity, and they also knew that he had been called to KB security that night. So the killer used him to execute a well-crafted plan to murder Kane Bullard.
Now then, let's hear your accusation, Mr. Wright. Who was it that framed Mr. Ron Delight for the murder of Kane Bullard?
It has to be this guy, man. It has to be Detective Luke Atme. Detective Luke Atme. He's the only one who could have done it.
Ace Detective.
Luke Atme?
You mean Mask Demask did it?
Your Honor, the person being tried in the court next to us is not Mask Demask at all. He is, in actuality, a true murderer of Kane Bullard.
Order! Order! Mr. Wright, explain yourself.
Theft and murder. Which is the more serious crime?
They're not even close. Murder is more serious, of course. It's a capital crime subject to capital punishment.
Please remember the trial from yesterday, if you would. When Luke Atme confessed, there was a huge commotion in the courtroom.
Of course, a famous detective was unmasked and, well, as Mask Demask.
Instead of being convicted of murder, he was found guilty of grand larceny. That was his true objective all along.
To be found guilty?
Mask Demask hid the perfect alibi for when the murder took place. He was stealing the urn at Lordly Taylor. In other words, being found guilty as Mask Demask was Luke Atme's airtight, watertight, and unassailable alibi.
A guilty verdict as an alibi? This is wild.
This is wild, dude.
You know, it's almost time.
For what?
For Luke Atme's verdict. It was a pretty simple trial after all. If we're gonna stop this trial and stall that one, we need to do it now. Of course, it's assuming you have proof that the detective was the one who committed the murder.
Mr. Luke Atme's trial has indeed attracted the attention of the entire country. If we were to intrude and failed to provide adequate proof of his true crime, Mr. Delight would be left with no grounds for appeal.
Am I really sure about this?
A bet's only as good as the life that's the ante.
Mr. Wright, I believe in you. Mr. Delight. So please. I'm begging you. Thanks, but my decision will determine the rest of your life. Can I really risk your life like this? Phoenix. What was that? Don't stray, Phoenix. For your client, take the path of trust. That voice. It sounds like... Mia? Your Honor, the defense requests an immediate recess.
So that's your answer, huh?
Very well. I've decided as well. This court will now take a 20-minute recess. Mr. Wright, when we return, please summon Mr. Luke Atme to the stand.
Yes, Your Honor. October 14th, 11:58 a.m. District Courtroom, number 5.
He's looking cleaner than before.
Ryan Dimmick!
Nani.
With that 5 months in a row at tier 2, Ryan, yo, can we get some moist Nani in the chat for the boy? Thank you so much for that resub, man. I really appreciate it. You're here just in time for what I assume has to be our grand finale. What's Payne doing here? Oh, is he in Luke Atme's trial?
Well, sir, Detective Atme?
Heh. I have to say, Monsieur Payne, you performed splendidly.
Oh no, Sir Detective Atme. You were the one who...
Well, look at this judge.
That's enough. This court sees no reason to further prolong this trial.
The court finds the defendant, Luke Atme. Hold it. Hold it. Wait! Don't hand down your verdict yet, please. Well, Sir Lawyer. Welcome to my courtroom. Who's this hoser, eh? Oh my god. Who's this hoser, eh? My name's Phoenix Wright, attorney at law, and I wish to file an accusation against this man, Luke Atme. One thing I really want to point out, guys, one thing I think is really important to point out. Look at the ring on his finger, the big red jewel on his finger, and look at this blackmail letter. If you don't, I'll take that red diamond you received the other day. Red diamond. There's been absolutely no mention of a red diamond at any point up until now, especially considering this newspaper definitely indicates that the tier of Eminon from the Mask to Mask stealings, thieveries, whatever you want to call them, is blue. And all of the other things that Mask to Mask stole, as listed here, crown, left hand of Hades, portrait of Magina, artifact, sculpture, painting, not jewels. The only jewel was the tier, and it's blue. So this big red one on his hand matches the description in this blackmail letter. And that is the only, like, I think that's going to come up. I don't know how yet, but I think that's going to connect somehow. Anyway, let's get back in. And I wish to file an accusation against this man, Luke Atme.
Accusation? You mean accuse Mask de Mask?
That man is not Mask to Mask. He's just a ruthless murderer. What? Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.